Hey everyone, this is Bob McIntosh from Mass High Lowell Career Center. Today I'm with Kevin Turner and we're going to be talking about how to brand and land by your branding. Sorry about that. How to use branding in your job search. Before I go further though, would you look over to your right where you can ask questions, you can raise your hand, and you can download the PDF of this presentation? Yep, there is one. And right now, would you raise your hand if you can hear me, please? Anyone? Anyone? Let me see. All right. Okay. Yep. Good. Got a lot of hands going up. Very good. Very good. Hey, I got to tell you that Kevin lives in Dallas, where it's below zero there. So would you give him a little empathy there? All right. Good. Good. Okay. So Kevin, and I'm going to have him talk more about himself, but Kevin is a personal and organizational brand strategist, providing the sharpest tools and strategies for your professional success. LinkedIn, resumes, website, trainer, writer, trainer, career coach, and board member. Any ideas where that that verbiage came from? Write it in the question box if you know. All right. Yep, you're right. It's from his LinkedIn headline, and I'm going to have Kevin talk a little bit more about himself, give you a little rundown of his history. Quite a marketer, and so take it away, Kevin.
Bob, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here at Mass Hire for Lowell, and I love talking about branding. It's a lot of who I am and always has been part of me. I started many years back at SONY Corporation, Fortune 50 in sales and marketing, national sales manager, director at the end. And I went through transitions in my career. Actually, I've had 6 pivots within my own career, and each one of them I've been able to pull through into the next opportunity based on branding myself and knowing where I wanted to go. And so it's really critical. And I always, liken it to brand to land, much as if you were launching a product and you were a company. That's what we are today. With all the competition we have for a product, we've got to launch ourselves. People have to understand our values, what we solve,
Absolutely.
why it's important.
And that's why I think these webinars are going to be so important to people, is because they have to realize that they are sort of as I saw it first from Kevin Yate, Me Incorporated. So we are our own corporation, and we have to learn how to brand ourselves in order to land the job, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now you said you worked for Sony. Were you involved in the Walkman?
I was originally. I had written letters in high school to Sony to get an internship, and I targeted several companies, wrote hand letters to the top officials in the companies, and the Maritas responded from Sony, and basically paid my way there. Stayed with the family, and they put me on projects. And one of those projects was what we call the Walkman. Back then it was called the Walkabout. And they gave you money in your pocket, a Walkman on your belt, 2 headphones, and you went and made a scene, kind of. So this was experiential marketing in the beginning, right? You made a scene, you put your headphones on to somebody else, they would listen to your music, and that's what we do all day. And then we'd come back and report, were they interested? How much would they pay for it? What was the response? And, that was the beginning of I guess my career in marketing and my love for it. And it came before that. Even my father was in the aircraft industry, and he was in sales and marketing, and he used to actually do his presentations in the living room, right? Flip charts.
Oh yeah.
Back in those days, and he'd present in front of Congress and get big, RFQs, approved and all this stuff. But he would practice on us as kids. All 4 of us sitting on the floor. We were his audience. And I fell in love with marketing.
Pretty big audiences yourself.
Yeah. Well, over the years, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to take this forward, and I want to see if there are any questions to begin with, because we're going to talk about 6 tips on how to brand yourself to land. But Oh, someone writes, my husband still has one, a Walkman.
I have my original too. Yeah.
I want, hey, right back. See, tell me if he still uses it. He actually uses it. Okay. So, Kevin, like I usually do, I have some polls, and I only have one poll for this audience, but the question here is, do you have a strong understanding of your personal branding? And so, Kevin, I think this is going to give us an idea of, the audience and their perception of their branding. So, I love polls, and I'm gonna find this interesting. Okay, so I've launched the poll.
Great.
Oh, we're getting a variety of results already.
Fantastic.
So 54% have already voted. This is going to be a lively crowd, I think.
Nice.
Yep, 77, 79%. Hey, maybe I'll use this as a poll on LinkedIn.
There we go. It's doing well already.
Yeah, 86%.
Now I can't see the results.
No, I'm going to show you. You can't see them at all? All right,
No, I can see the poll itself is up, but I can't select anything. So, and I wouldn't vote. That would throw everything off, wouldn't it?
All right, I'm going to close the poll now, and we have 89% who voted. And let me see, tell me if you can see this. Can you see it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so 12% feel that they have a strong understanding of their personal branding. That's good. 52%, sort of. I would say I'd have to border on yes and sort of. I mean, by no means am I as an expert at branding as you are, and 35% say no. So hopefully by the end of this webinar, we're going to give people a better sense of how they can brand themselves. All right.
Fantastic.
Okay, thank you all for participating. So 6 tips for branding to land your next job. So Kevin, what the heck is personal branding? Can you say that in your own words?
Oh, absolutely. And it really kind of boils down to, if you think about it, what do people say about you when you're not in the room? Right?
Ah, yeah.
Kind of your reputation is basically your brand, but what people have a tendency to do is leave it up to the people in the room when they're not there.
Exactly.
To present their brand. And you really have to know it better, define it, control it, present it, and so that when you do leave that room, your champions are there and they know exactly how to present you.
Good.
So that you can move forward to where you want to be. And that's critical. That's the step everybody forgets to do. They let other people create our brands for us. We need to take more control.
Okay, so basically what you're saying, it's your reputation, but then you have to express it. You have to, in a consistent manner, express your reputation so that people understand not only what you've done in the past, but what you'll be doing in the future for, say, employers or friends or family, right?
Well, absolutely. And it's really about, people always say, creating a personal brand. You don't create a personal brand. It's already there. What you do is you refine it, right? Because there are parts of your personal brand that you may not want to move forward into the future. I did a couple of startups in my career, and I was really good with math. So I always got assigned payroll, right? Payroll and taxes. If you do that perfect, nobody says thank you because you paid them, right? But if you do it wrong, they show up at your door at 12 at night on Friday night and they say, we got to go back to the office. My paycheck was short. $200 happened to me once in 4 years. I gave the individual $200. I never want that to be part of my brand.
No.
And people will allow that to be part of their brand. I've taken it out of everything that I call my marketing campaign, right? It's off LinkedIn. It's never in a resume. It's never in a bio.
No.
We talk about it, but that's it.
I never knew that about you. That's true.
No, that's not what I want to move forward with, right? And people have a tendency to do that and allow these things to kind of craft, what they are. And if I had not helped my group, right, understand who I was and what my brand is, what I want it to be presented as, when I was not in the room, they might have said, he's excellent at payroll and taxes, which is not what I want to do. So again, you've got to be able to gain control of it, refine it, define it, and make sure everybody understands it so they can present it when you're not there.
That's right. And you know, another thing I think is very important in terms of your personal brand on your LinkedIn profile in specific, particularly is your photo. And so I'm looking at your photo on your profile and I'm looking at you and they're identical. And I think this is really important. I think it's important. What's that? Yeah.
Go do that.
I think it's important really to represent yourself as the way you are today. And so, you know, when I see people's profiles and they have photos, and you know this of some people that are 20 years old, no,
There's nothing worse
that's
than
not
showing up
branding
to
yourself in a real honest way.
Well, there's nothing worse than showing up to a meeting and people in the meeting go, "What happened to Bob? What bus
Right.
hit him on the way over here?" Right?
Exactly.
And so if you're appearing 20 years older when you arrive and they've been staring
Yeah.
at your picture in your branding, right? You've given them a false impression. It'd be like selling a shiny car, and then when everybody shows up, it's dented and torn up, and flat
Exactly.
tires and that kind of stuff. Present who you are to move forward, and do the best you can to make sure that shows who you are. Now, I'm a little unusual. I always look at myself as almost like the laundry that has the sign upside down that was hung upside down by accident.
Uh-huh.
They said, "That's our brand. We'll move forward with it." I like something a little edgier. Doesn't work for everybody, but I
Absolutely.
think you have to get it out there, and you've got to change it.
That's why you're looking off to the side, right?
Yes. There's one other step to that too, and that is it is ID theft proof. Nobody can make a passport out of my picture.
True.
And I believe in that. So a lot of people doing that on LinkedIn. You always got to be careful.
Okay. So one person here says he hopes that you enjoy the New England style winter.
Yes.
That's a little.
You know what? I would enjoy it more in New England than here because we're not prepared for it. We don't have the infrastructure, and it has put a lot of people without power. Hundreds of thousands of people in Dallas have no power. I had to go get my kids last night and bring them here from their homes just so they could.
That's what we do as parents. Okay. So one person wrote, and sorry to hear this, she says, after 30 years, I have no idea where to go from here. Do you have any bit of advice on that?
That's actually a good place to be, because there are many people.
You don't know who you want to be when you grow up, type of thing?
Well, no, there are many people who don't realize that they don't know, right?
Yeah.
It's more dangerous when you think you know, or you're pretending like you know.
Sure.
The fact that you don't know is okay. What you need to do then is assess what are your passions, right? What do you do better than anybody else you know? And then you look at what are companies paying for, right?
Right.
If those three don't match, that's a brand that's not going to sell. So you want to kind of analyze that, and you want to look at that and say, what is that? What can I become? Or what do I want to do? And you've got to then look at the gaps, right? How do I fill those gaps? Is it just the fact that I don't have it in my content yet, in my presentations yet? Is it something I've got to then gain that experience to get there? But you're in a good spot if you realize you don't know what your brand is.
You realize that you don't want to do payroll anymore. So you're going to fill those gaps with some of the positions that you held in the past that you really enjoyed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's see. So why is it important for job seekers to brand themselves?
It's extremely competitive right now. There's a lot of people, and God bless them, they're out of work. They're trying to get back to work. There are a lot of people that the economy has taken advantage of over the years, and they've been doing 2 and 3 people's jobs. They're still at work, so they should be grateful, but they want to do something else. There's a lot of people just in that evolution stage. There's a lot of competition. And if you think about it, when you're applying for particular jobs, people are going to have very similar backgrounds. And if we just take the approach of responsibility fours, right, and kind of do the basic description, we're not going to stand out. So that's why branding is so important right now, because of the competitive market.
Right. So you need to make yourself unique.
Absolutely. And easy to understand. If you're not unique, they better understand how you solve that problem very simply, because most people are competing with people who have a very mixed message, and it's not really strong. But if you can define that, really find your focus, where you want to go, what do you do, what are you passionate about, what are they hiring for, and really refine it to that, you're going to go above the crowd. They're going to see you, they're going to understand you.
And it's fair to say that all employers have problems, right? So you
Absolutely.
just need to understand what their pain points are and then show how you can solve those problems. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. And think about it as if you were hiring, what would you be hiring for?
True.
Just
True.
take the other seat and look at yourself in that sense.
What does product sizing mean? I've never heard of that. I mean,
it's going back to thinking of yourself as the solution, right? Companies have needs. If you can think of yourself as a solution, how do I solve those issues that they're having? And then really kind of break it down into a simple definition and value that you can bring forward, that almost like what you would get if you were looking at a product at a store, right? They've got a couple of bullets. That's what I want. I want, Wi-Fi that has 400-foot range that, allows me to have 27 devices on it. That's what I need, right? Think of ourselves as a product, and then make that basic brand presentation simplified so they can say, that's exactly what I need. You're not going to fit everything.
So if we take this literally, and so we just had a refrigerator we had to get rid of. I won't mention the brand name, LG. And so we wanted something a little simpler. Is that okay to come across as, not all flash and glitter, just a solid person, a solid worker?
And that's what many companies want, right?
Yeah.
They want people with focus, with passion, that they can see really how they fit. People have a tendency to try to present themselves as fitting everything, and it doesn't work. So in that sense, and that may go into another subject we're talking about.
Yeah,
so
we're going to talk about that. No. Can I get a question in here though? Does branding help when interview process may not include an in-person meeting? How do you brand yourself in that way?
Yeah, in a couple of different ways. If it's branding in your resume or your cover letter, right? Those words count.
Sure.
That's what's going to help you stand above the competition. If it's branding in the sense of what you're doing on LinkedIn, right? And I would take that a step farther. That's your engagement. That's your post. That's your knowledge share.
Sure.
That's even your behavior on LinkedIn. I'm not burning bridges. I'm not flaming people. I'm building, right? I'm creating a culture. I'm adding to the conversation. So all that becomes part of the brand as well.
Right.
So yes, it's absolutely important.
So getting to getting back to how you behave on LinkedIn. You and I know someone who we're not too fond of. We won't mention their name, but yeah, I mean, when you behave in a nasty way on LinkedIn, then you're hurting your brand. You really are.
Absolutely.
And
it's today's technology, they're recording it. This is automated, some of this stuff, as in a high risk equation. And you don't even know that, but they're doing a lot in AI that are deciding which employees move forward in the process based on how they behave, out in the wild, shall we say.
Oh yeah. And so, speaking of other platforms like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, YouTube, that all matters. That all matters, how you are perceived by recruiters and other hiring authorities. So what do you mean by easy to remember? I mean, could you go into a little more detail about that?
Yeah, you want to really have it well defined, very well focused.
Yeah.
And so that if somebody says, what does Bob do?
Right.
They shouldn't have to say that. They should know exactly what Bob does, right? Bob helps job seekers. Something as simple as that is part of that brand, right?
Yeah.
And so that's critical to develop those out. I almost think of it like companies that, when they're selling a product, Nike, right? Nike is just do it.
Yes.
That's very simple. But you could write a 10-page thesis in college on what does just do it mean. Right? Now
Yeah.
we're a little more complicated than a sneaker, so we'll take up a little more words than a sneaker does, but the concept is the same. It's really about simplifying that message so that people see power in it. And I
Right,
always
right.
think about, I guess one of my favorite quotes, Winston Churchill. He said, if you need a 2-hour presentation that will be inspiring and motivating, I'm ready right now.
Mm-hmm.
If you need a 15-minute one, I will need 2 weeks to prepare.
It's true. That's a great quote. Yeah. Yeah.
Distinct
Because it
power
is.
takes time.
It is,
Yeah.
you know, it is hard to be brief when you need to, but yeah, that's a great quote. You know, I want to get back to that person who asked, you know, if you are in the interview process and you're interviewing online, you know, how does branding come into play here? Well, I think this is like the perfect example, right? Just as your
Absolutely.
background, if your background is what you consistently use, then that's a perfect example of how you can brand yourself. Unfortunately, a lot of our folks, they don't have the space, you know, they don't have the nice background or the lighting. There's background noise going about, you know, unfortunately, that's the case for some people. So I just hope that hiring authorities are more sensitive to that not everything can be perfect in one's background. All
You
right.
know, I think they are more so this year than they ever have been. But at the
Yes,
same
yes.
time, we also have to take as much responsibility as we can to give our best presentation.
Hmm.
Some things are unavoidable, but you know, let's do what we can to make sure we're always giving the best we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to add one more because I just realized who the person is who asked that question. And when I do a job club, I do take note of how people are dressed and their background image and their lighting. And it's not that I'm going to frown upon that. It's just that some employers do, and I think that's unfortunate. I really do, because as I say, we don't all have the resources as a company does, and other people. Okay. All
Absolutely.
right. So the next one, what are the biggest mistakes people are making? Whoops, let me move the photo, the camera. People are making in personal branding.
Well, you know, I think the biggest mistake that people are making, I always refer to it as Jack and Jill, right? Being a
Uh-huh.
Jack and Jill of all trades, right?
Right, right, right.
And we know what the end of that phrase is, and people forget what the end is. They think that's what a company wants. They want me to be able to do anything they want, and I can do that. But
Hmm.
the end of that phrase, Bob, you know what it is. What is it?
Well, Jack, you can be a Jack and Jill. You can be you can, but not a master of all trades. So, is
That's the
that what you're
key.
leading to?
Yeah, and that's the end of that phrase.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
You're a
what
jack
people
of all
don't
trades,
realize,
but a master of none.
yeah, nobody hires masters of none. No matter how good you are at being a master of none,
Right.
nobody hires that. So you want to really look at that and say, I don't want to try to say I can do absolutely anything. I might even realize that the company still wants me to be able to catch every ball they throw at me. I'm going to juggle it. They're still going to know I'm going to do that, but I can't make a brand presentation out of that because it's really wishy-washy.
Hmm.
You never get to a point, you never show that true value, that way you solve, because what you're trying to tell them is no matter what you've got, I can solve all of it. They don't buy into it. So that's probably the biggest mistake I see out there is everybody's trying to say I can do everything.
Right,
And the reason
right.
they're doing that, they don't want to lose any opportunity. But what they're ending up getting is none of those opportunities. And that's what they
Okay.
fail to realize.
Sorry, we lost audio. Some people are saying we lost audio. Could people please raise your hand if you can still hear us? I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Kevin.
No, no problem.
Okay, so it's the problem with some people out there, and the internet connectivity has obviously been been hampered because of overuse. But
Oh,
so
absolutely.
we were back to Jack and Jill. Jack of all trades, master of none. You see people trying to express that idea on their resume, where they want to go back as far as they can in the work history and really talk about information which probably isn't relevant.
Absolutely.
or their resume has no direction. It really has no brand because they have a lot of, positions. They have a lot of experience that isn't really relevant to what employers are looking for.
Yeah. Well, they'll take the 10% of these odd little pieces they've done everywhere and make that the majority of their presentation. And again, trying to cast the biggest net doesn't always bring back the best fish, right? It brings back a lot, but you can't handle them all. They've really got to focus because, again, companies aren't buying into it. They want you to solve particular issues that you're good at doing, and that's really what you need to focus on.
So
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to kind of jump into often resumes, even LinkedIn gets built over time, right? We just add another thing to it, and we never really go back and look at it. And I call that the chronological dump, right?
Sure.
There's everything. And when you do that, that all moves forward as part of the brand, sometimes part of the confusing part of the brand, right? And so you really want to go back and look at that and say, who's my audience? What do they need solved? Where do I want to head to? And look at the wording and make sure it moves you forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There may even be things that you're going to do in the next step. Maybe it's manage a team, and you didn't realize that 4 jobs ago, you didn't have that as a direct position, but you managed projects that had teams involved, or you had volunteers that showed up. And so you can now rewrite that and tell a little bit about that, right?
Sure.
These are marketing documents. They're based on the truth, but it's only the truth that you want to tell them. It's not the whole truth, right?
Sure.
The truth that moves you forward.
Right.
And I always look at advertising, let's say for a car, right? If you're selling a car, you might talk about horsepower and cornering and styling or safety or whatever it is. But if it has a seat that hurts when you ride in it, don't present that, right? They're not going to present it when they're selling you that Corvette, right?
Sure.
That's going to be something you can find
out later. Don't
later.
get the whole truth, for the weakness question. So one person writes, so what should I do instead of going back, way back in your resume if you have been teaching for the last 7 years but want to do something else now? I think, what would you say to that? I have an answer, and I'll follow up on yours. What do you say to that?
Well, there's a couple things. Speed of business, right? Business changes fairly rapidly. Most people assessing resumes, LinkedIn, your presentations, they're really looking at what have you done in the last 7 to 10 years.
Yeah, sure.
That's going to be your most current skill set. I've done things for 30 years, right? They don't care what I did, that far back, even if I'm still doing it today, which is branding and sales. They want to know that closer section of skills. And depending on what business you're in, if you're in digital marketing, they might not look back 10 years. They might look back 6 weeks or next week. What are you doing, right? So some are even more dynamic, but spend your time focusing on what they're going to use in their assessment. Now, that doesn't mean you have to get rid of all your past. You can leave a little more of that on LinkedIn. That's more like a European CV, right? But when you get down into your resume, focus on that last 10, maybe 15 years, and that's what you want to bring forward. And again, go back and look at each piece and remove that kind of chronological dump and focus the wording to move you forward.
Sure.
Re-examine that, rewrite it.
LinkedIn has the, it has this feature. It isn't really on the platform itself, but they have a feature that shows that if you are, say, a teacher and you want to become a nurse, it will show you which of the transferable skills will allow you to make the transition easier. So I think, my answer to that would be is that if you have strong transferable skills, then they can make the transition easier to the position that you're looking at. And so not a lot of recruiters are very fond of the functional resume, but that is maybe the way I would go in this case. Right, Kevin? I mean, you put the skills that you have that are really pertinent to the position up front in say, the skills area, and then the work history is de-emphasized.
That's absolutely a way to kind of move it forward. And I always look too, if you're developing skills
Yeah,
that weren't part of your job itself, you can still present them in the resume and you can tell them where you're using those skills, right?
sure, sure.
I've always had a saying in my own life, to pivot, you have to be able to prove it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If you can't prove that you have it or that you're using it or you know how it works, a certificate's not enough, right?
So that's what you mean by proof metrics, right? Proof
Yes,
metrics,
absolutely.
quantified
But
to
not only that, but just those things that aren't part of your job that you're developing to move to the next step, right? So, do some free work for a nonprofit. If you're now trying to get into database design and you've taken courses, certificates are nice, but volunteer at the Red Cross and help them rebuild their database. Now
Absolutely.
you've got something to talk about that proves you can do it, right?
I mean, no one
Grab
likes
a
to work
side
for
gig.
free, but it's been said somewhere that your chances of getting a job improve 23%. I don't know where they got that figure by volunteering, you know?
Absolutely. And you can volunteer in a way that helps you build that next step. We were talking about earlier
Yeah.
about team management. You may never have been a manager of teams, but you join a volunteer group and you can pick up teams to manage.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
there's
no,
something
yeah,
about
absolutely.
volunteers because if you're not a good leader, they can just walk out.
That's true.
So
That's true.
your
You know, in
skill
some
set is
cases,
a
our volunteer
volunteer.
experience is harder work than our paid employment. So,
Absolutely. So you can use that, sell that as part of your brand.
right. Okay. So I'm gonna, you know what? I haven't had people raise their hand lately, but who out there is a fan of volunteering to gain some skills and maybe do some networking, build your brand? Oh gosh, a lot of hands are going up. Holy moly.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'll give you a sense of it. Well, I'm seeing maybe 10 or 15. So out of 100 people, that's not a heck of a lot. That's a 10% success rate.
Yeah.
Okay. I got another one here. If you are changing careers and are still deciding between two options, how do you deal with your LinkedIn profile if I focus on career X, but at that a given time, career Y looks at your profile and is configuring wrong? You just shot yourself. Oh, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. Yeah, yeah,
If they're really divergent, right? If you're a dentist and you want to be a cardiologist, right? That might be difficult to do. But
yeah,
if it's
yeah.
sales versus marketing, there's ways of blending that message into it where it doesn't really take away from the other. And you can actually structure it that your knowledge of one and the other makes both better, right? So there's
Mhm.
ways of doing it. You just have to really think about it in that sense. But if it's real divergent, then it can be difficult.
Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes there's no
absolutely.
way to really play that, in that sense.
And I think the about section is probably a good place where
Mhm.
you can explain your career decision and how you're
Absolutely.
how you're going to be able to make that transition to another job, another career.
Absolutely.
Okay, there are more questions, but let's go forward because we're about halfway through. Um, so what are some creative ways you can brand yourself? I'm sorry about that. Beyond their LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn campaign, resumes, and personal business cards, etc.
I look at this that, again, we're in an extremely competitive market, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And to stand out from that crowd, sometimes you have to do something that might be a little edgy or might
sure.
even make you a little uncomfortable, but it gives you a huge advantage, right?
Hmm.
One of them, and I've had a few people do this that I've been talking to start doing podcasts, right? It could be an
Yeah.
audio podcast, it could be video, it could be LinkedIn Live. But the opportunity there is you figure out what your podcast is. It's on a subject that you want to build as part of your knowledge brand, right?
Sure,
That moves
sure.
you forward to where you want to go. And then you pick the people that you want to interview. So if you're in sports something or other and you want to talk to Mark Cuban, right, of the Mavericks, if you tried to
Go ahead,
call
talk
Mark
to
up and
Kevin.
say, hey,
Talk to
Mark,
Kevin. Kevin knows
yeah,
Cuban.
Yeah, if you just said, let's have coffee, can we talk? You're never going to get to him. But if you were able to call him, even talk to his assistant and say, I have a podcast that focuses on, sports medicine, blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
And I would love to interview Mark because he has this great expertise in this area. Could you pass that message on?
Yeah.
Very quickly, you're going to be sitting in front of Mark Cuban and you're going to be interviewing him. And if you can show him during that interview process that you could add value to what he does, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's an opportunity for him to say, hey, let's talk a little more. What are you doing right now? Well, I'm in between, or I'm kind of underemployed, but I'm holding on, but I'd really like to do this.
Sure.
It opens the conversation with people that you may never have been able to talk to in any other way. There's a new app out there right now called Clubhouse. Clubhouse is kind of an audio chat room. I always think it's 1990s technology, and it came about, they brought it back because of COVID, right? Everybody wants to talk. Everybody wants to be like they used to be, where they could go in a room and just talk to people, have their friends hang out at the bar, whatever it was, and you had great conversations. It's the same concept. But what's amazing is you could go into a room on Clubhouse, that's how they have it set up, and it could be Elon Musk talking, right? If you're in that room, you can raise your hand and ask Elon Musk a question. No other way could you, but Clubhouse is giving that opportunity. And I've had people that their questions, seen them, their questions were so intelligent in what they do because they were passionate about what they do, that the speaker on the other side say, hey, let's connect after this room closes. I want to talk to you about some things. Or they may even say, so what are you doing right now? And they say, well, I'm looking for an opportunity. They will say, I'm going to get back with you. We're going to get your resume because I can think of many ways that we could use you. And so I'm watching people on a regular basis make connections with the decision makers that if they had applied for it online, if they had sent their resume in, if their mother walked it in, their mother was their assistant, they might not even look at it. But in this kind of audio stage, it's happening. So think creatively, right? The easiest thing that everyone here can do is start adding value to LinkedIn. We're all on LinkedIn, right? Don't have to go straight into posts. That's what everybody thinks. Oh, I got to start posting stuff. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Instead of doing that, focus on who is making a difference in my industry.
Okay.
Start following them on LinkedIn. When you follow them, their conversations are going to be in your feed.
Yeah.
And then what you want to do is engage, right?
Right.
Add value
I'm looking at podcasts and Clubhouse. I mean, I get Clubhouse, but a podcast, you may not be technically inclined or you may not be interested in doing something like that. But what you're talking about now is really actionable.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you can start with that step of follow first, engage. And when that relationship begins to build, and you'll know when it is, they'll either invite you to connect or you'll invite them to connect.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right. And that grows.
So before you send out that, connection request, follow someone. And then not only that, but whenever they write something or, share an article or, a video or an audio, then comment on it. I mean, it doesn't take a lot to do that, does it?
No. And often they're putting themselves out there and you're helping them be successful as well. It might be a CEO of a company, but you can impact their success, or maybe it's just their dopamine, right? Whatever it is, but you're making them feel really good.
But more to the point though, you're going to become noticed by them. And that can be huge. That can definitely be huge. Let me see if I got another. I have another question here. And does our LinkedIn online brand, LinkedIn headline, et cetera, need to be built more for search tools like recruiter searches versus consumption by human eyeballs? That's a great question.
There's always a balance to it, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to just pack it with what I call SEO, keywords, key phrases, right?
Yes,
where it doesn't make
keyword dump. Yeah.
So you're within LinkedIn, you're working with technology. So there's bots, right, that are processing everything. You've got to be able to beat the bots, I always say, to excite the people.
Right.
So you got to do both, right? So you do have to do some of that keywording, some of those key phrases so that you can be found. Right now, LinkedIn, it's a $20 billion business.
Ooh.
60% of the revenue comes from the sale of one single product on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's called Talent Solutions. And all it does is package up members to sell to recruiters. Companies like Korn Ferry, world's largest, probably best reputation for retained search.
Yeah.
The last number I saw, and this was a few years back, was paying LinkedIn $65 million a year to be able to source people out of LinkedIn. So they're there, they're looking. If they're not finding you, it's because you're not doing these extra things that bring you forward. And part of, what they discover you for is not just what's on your profile, but it's what you're contributing to the community. And that's why it's important to go back and engage and follow and post and add value, because all of that's coming through the process.
I mean, there are three basic components to your LinkedIn campaign, and that would be your profile, where you do have those keywords, although tastefully, implemented in, and then engagement would be another, and then your network. So engagement, as you're saying, is pretty huge in terms of building your brand.
Well, absolutely. One other thing I would do is, when you are looking for people to engage with, if you are looking to leave one industry, let's say airline industry right now, or hospitality may not be the place to be, but your skills are transferable over to whatever that target industry may be, right? When you're finding people to follow in that target industry, look for people that have similar backgrounds to you, that made the transition from hospitality to whatever it might be, insurance, or automotive design, or whatever it is you're looking for. Look for the person who is influencing, who has a similar background, because they're going to get you as an individual faster than the person, let's say you're targeting IBM, who got his first internship at IBM and went 40 years at IBM. If you didn't do the same, they're not going to get you. But if you get the guy like Steve Jobs, right? He ran a grocery store, a macrobiotic kind of grocery store, and made his way into technology. He used to hire people who had odd, funky little backgrounds like that, because he got them as individuals, right?
Right.
So a lot of his design crew, if you look at it, they didn't go to the design, schools and things. They came from really funky little backgrounds.
Yeah, sure.
So find the people, that kind of look like you, smell like you, act like you,
Yeah.
These are the people who are going to be able to understand you and move you forward. So in that follow process, that's a huge accelerator to really kind of get the engagement going.
Absolutely. No, that's a great story. Because people want to hire people who they like and trust, who
Absolutely
have something more to offer than just the alphabet soup, the technical skills. Let's go to our next one, and let's see. Okay, so what about networking? What about building, or at least expressing your brand through networking?
Then one of the things I've always looked at is kind of fine tuning what that brand message is, right? Making it succinct. And I've always referred to it as kind of your digital handshake, or your handshake. If you cannot express the value that you add, right, the need that you solve in a company, in the time it takes you to shake somebody's hand, right, and then let go. If you're still holding their hand and you're still talking, it's getting creepy. Right?
Yeah.
If you think about it, you should be able to express that value forward in the time it takes you to shake your hand. Real important. People, they refer to it as all sorts of things, elevator pitch, there's a lot of different words for it. I've always thought of it as a handshake, because if you think about it, when you grab somebody's hand and you shake it, like in the old days, how long did you have to do that? That's really where you have to bring your value from.
So you're more of a fan of a shorter elevator pitch than a longer elevator pitch.
You've got to have it, and you've got to be able to expand upon it, from there. I have always believed that networking always beats not working.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
There is no doubt.
Most
Is it
successful way to find a
uncomfortable?
job.
Yeah. Is it uncomfortable? Absolutely, network's uncomfortable. Is not working more uncomfortable? Absolutely it is. And the
Oh,
bill
yeah.
collector's out, right? So you've got to almost push yourself into that uncomfort zone to get out of the worst uncomfort zone. So that's
Sure.
what, that's me. Networking always beats not working. You've got to figure out, how do I do it effectively? Part of that, I think, is knowing that handshake, getting that out of the
Mhm.
way. So when somebody says, what do you do? You're able to answer it very succinctly, right? Then you can expand upon it when they say, tell me more, right? But you want to be able to get that out of the way so you're not nervous, you're not worried about, that component, right?
So let me put you on the spot here then, Kevin. Let me say, so, we're shaking each other's hands and I say, so Kevin, what do you do? What is your succinct answer going to be there?
Mine
Yeah.
is, I help organizations and individuals sell themselves.
Okay, good, good. So
That's
the
what I
bottom
do.
line, right? The bottom line.
Yeah.
So
And
I
so
help individuals land jobs.
you got it. And that's key. And
Okay.
that's something you can have a handshake on. Everybody needs to think of what that is, kind of like we talked about earlier, Nike sneakers, right? Just do it. We're a little more complicated. We take a little more time,
Hmm.
but you got to get down to that handshake and understand that value. And then you need to be able to ask the other individual, right?
Yeah,
What
sure.
do they do? And
Right. Because you want
I'm
to
one of
appear as if
those
you're
that,
interested too, right?
yeah,
Hopefully you are.
yeah. And I always try to separate it, even though we're there for kind of business in a sense.
Yeah.
Depending on the crowd, you might not ask them, what do you do for a job, right? Because
No, no,
that's
no, no.
dull and boring.
But well,
You
maybe
know,
that's not what's important. Maybe what's important is, what is your passion?
that's one of the best questions.
Right,
Or
right.
yeah, what has
Like, what is your
got you
why?
really
Why?
excited this
Why do you
week?
do what you do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are the kind of things that change it from, I've heard the question before and it's boring, to now you're involving me and you're interested in me. You prove it that way, right? And
Yeah.
it helps build that relationship. And it really makes it easier on you when you're networking. You know, Everything that we do in the real world, believe it or not, translates to the digital world, to social media.
Hmm.
We can do the same things that we react to as humans when we're outside in the wild, right? That same stuff works digitally. And people have a
Okay.
tendency
So I
to
got
forget.
to let me break off here for a second because I have some questions I've been ignoring. Let's see. What if you need a job to say, what if you need a job to save to go back to training for your passion? What do you mean? What do you need a job to go back to your passion? Is that, I, why don't we say this? Why don't, what if you need to take a job that will allow you to get back into what you're passionate about? Maybe you have to start over again and take a, entry level job. How does that work? You know? Okay, so yes, so that is the question. So if you have to take an entry level job to get back to what you're really passionate about, I mean, is that going to hurt your brand? Is that, or, you just do what you got to do?
I think, it depends on how you present it. What are
Mm,
you trying to accomplish? If you're in an industry that no longer exists, people understand you're going to try
right,
to move
right.
over to another one.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would say you have to go all the way back to ground one. Try to find
true.
as
If
equivalent
you're
as
in the
you
food
can.
industry, hospitality,
Yeah,
airline industry,
yeah.
whatever it may be. Yeah.
I don't think I don't think it's a start over, but and part of that too is looking at the people you're talking to help you make that transition in the industry. Find ones, again, like we said, that had similar backgrounds to you. They'll
Yes,
get
yes.
you and they'll help you come in, not at entry level, but maybe even a step up or the same level or something close, because they get you and they see the value moving forward. So a lot of it is in your approach.
Hmm.
But there are times where you've got to take a position that you really don't want to do because you can do it, right? And you
Yeah.
really want to do something else. And that's understandable. Take what you need to pay the bills and then focus on, how do I make this transition happen? How do I gain the skills? how do I prove the skills, right? Because you got to
Yeah,
prove you're
sure,
doing them.
sure.
It may even be in a side gig. You know,
Yeah.
both you and I know Austin Belchat, right?
Yes, absolutely. He
Super guy.
just totally, he
Yeah,
left Microsoft to just do his
yeah,
own thing.
yeah. He found out he didn't like
Courage, man. That
Microsoft.
takes courage. That's what you did.
Yeah, but he
But
started
he's
that
doing
as a
something different though.
small
He's
side
helping
gig
drugs.
and built it, you know,
Yeah,
as a side gig, and then found out how to monetize it and make it work. And, you know, sometimes that's what we have to do. So sometimes we need something that pays the bills,
hmm,
right, to get to where we need to go. And there's
right, right.
nothing wrong with that. Now, you cannot tell an employer, I'm only here for a short period, right, until I
No,
get my thing
no,
going, because they're
no,
not going to hire you. You know,
no,
you
no. That
don't want to
reminds
have
me of
to hire
someone who
them.
gets a question during an interview. So what do you plan to, where do you plan to be in 5 years? And the person says retired. No, that's not the right answer.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I
so
want
one
this to
person
be my
asked,
last
one,
job, you know, and that's not what they're hiring for.
no,
So
no. So one
again,
person
that's
asked,
depending
what
on
is the
what they're
most
solving.
damaging thing you can do to your brand?
The most damaging thing you can do to your brand is not be honest. And
Mm.
I hate to even use the word authentic, right? Because it gets used too often. But the most damaging thing you can do is to pretend to be something you're not,
Ah,
right?
wow.
To use other people's content and try to pass it off as your own, to speak about things that you really have no knowledge, because you'll end up putting yourself in a position where
That's a great point.
somebody's going to
Yeah.
ask you a question and you're not going to be able to answer it, or they're going to figure out you don't know it. That's damaging to your brand. Now, that doesn't mean you should shy away from something that's a challenge, right?
Right,
And
right.
sometimes you have to kind of step out of that comfort zone. Branson always said, if somebody offered you a job that you didn't think you could do, but it was exciting, take it.
Hmm.
There is some of that, right? But what he said was take it. He didn't say lie to get it, right?
No,
So
no, no, absolutely not.
yeah,
Absolutely
that
not. And
honesty.
you and I see it. We see it on LinkedIn where people are just not being authentic. I mean, they're not
Oh,
being
yeah.
themselves,
Oh,
right?
and they're using other people's content, or
Yeah,
they're
right.
talking, you know,
Or they're
in other,
trolling, they're just making bad
yeah,
comments,
yeah,
hurtful comments. So,
yeah, yeah. And nobody's going to think you're going to fit into their culture if you're out abusing the culture in the wild, right? If you're
yeah,
doing that,
yeah,
they know immediately you're not going to be somebody that's going to be easy to bring in to match the rest of the group and to move forward, because no company, exists on people who burn bridges.
exactly. So one person asked, what is trolling? And you just said it's basically burning bridges by
Yeah.
writing negative comments to people's discussions. And we see these people who are trolling on LinkedIn and they're just like, writing hurtful things.
Yeah.
Okay, last question, because we have 8 minutes left. But in any
Oh,
case,
wow. That went
wow, I
fast.
know time went fast, and I really loved talking with you, and I hope the audience did as well. But there are some naysayers out there who are thinking branding is only for corporations like Nike, McDonald's, and the like. What do you say to them?
I say, think about it again. You know, we are in essence in a very, very competitive market, which we've never been in before.
Right,
And
right.
anytime you go into something that you've never been in before and you know what it is, right? You've got to be responsive to it. We know effectively those who are branding themselves, those who are solving the issues that the organizations are hiring for, and they can figure it out, right? That's
Yeah.
part of what you do. They're getting hired, and you see it daily. They're the
Hmm.
ones having the announcement, just started a new position at. And if you go back to their profile, you'll look at it and you'll go, I know exactly what they did. I know why they got hired, right?
Yes,
Because
yes.
they implemented branding. Now, it's easy to say, I don't believe it works and not do it, but that's not going to get you anywhere farther forward. Sometimes you've got to do things that, there's proof out there that they're working. Maybe they're a little bit uncomfortable, kind of like networking, right? A little
Yeah, sure.
uncomfortable, but it beats the alternative. Embrace it, learn how to do it. It does pay off. And if branding didn't pay off, those big companies wouldn't be big companies.
Right, right, right.
And that's what we want to be. We want to be our own big company of one, right? We want to be able
Well,
to bring down that
it's
kind
what
of
we
money.
are. It's what we
Yeah.
are. Really.
Yeah.
It really is. So you said earlier that we have a brand already. It's our reputation. It's what other people say when we're not in the room. It's hard to create a brand, if impossible. But what if we have a brand, and people are telling us what saying things about us when we're not in the room, how can we better express our brand? I mean, how can we stand
And
out?
sometimes it's about finding out what your current brand is, right? Talk to individuals that know you well and
Right.
ask,
How many
what
people
do I do well?
bother to
How
do
do you
that? Right.
describe me, right? That
Yeah.
may give you a base point to either make corrections to, right? Or augment from there. So that's always a good place, is to reach out to people that know you well. And it doesn't always have to be people who like you, right? They may be people who know you well that don't really care for you, but they'll give you an honest opinion, right? And take that and kind of assemble it and know that that is your current brand. If it doesn't move you forward to where you want to go, what do you have to do to refine it? Now, to me, refining doesn't mean lying, because that's never going to
No,
work.
no.
But
But you have to have a story though, right?
and much like me with the payroll and accounting, right? If people were saying that in a room when I wasn't there, I'm now removing that from everything I did, because I don't want to do that going forward. So
Right.
part of it is what you present forward and how you understand that, so that you can build that brand and that message. And when you incorporate that into things like your LinkedIn, right? Your headline, your about sections, even into your content of what you did in jobs, and you're bringing that brand forward, and you're doing it in the same thing in the resume. You're doing it in every post that you're putting out there, right?
Yeah, sure.
When you are doing that, you are now telling them what they should be saying when you're not in the room. And believe it or not, it worked.
Hey, you know what? Someone asked, where can I find a good example of personal branding? I'll tell you one place you can go is to Kevin Turner's LinkedIn page, his profile, because I think the best way to learn from about branding is from people who brand themselves, people who are branding experts. But I think also it's really the flavor you're after, where you can learn about branding. It may not be from me, it may not be from Kevin, it may not be from Austin Belsack. It could be from someone on LinkedIn who you just really jive with. You get that message, and if you can say, hey, I'm 3/4 of that, then don't steal, but emulate.
Yeah.
She writes, are there articles on personal branding? Oh, yes.
There's tons of them. And there's thought leaders on LinkedIn, writing about personal branding. Brenda Miller is a great person.
Oh,
John
my God. Yes.
Asperian, Bob McIntosh, Sonia Ball. There's many great people out there. And if somebody follows either you or me, you'll see us interacting with them. Join in, follow those people, interact with those people. You will find the one that fits you best, that feels right for you, and then spend even more time with them, because we are all individuals. We're all headed in different directions, and there's always good people there to help us find that way. And to me, that's critical. Find what you're comfortable in. Somebody that's going to be able to help you grow mentally, maybe challenge you even, right? So don't go with one that's just easy. Go with one that's going to challenge you a little bit, take you a little bit farther forward each time. And again, engage with them.
Sure.
I think the big
I think one of the golden nuggets, you have, is follow someone and engage with them. Get on their radar, really get noticed. And one piece of advice I also give is connect with the recruiters. Follow them.
Absolutely.
Not only on LinkedIn, but Facebook, Twitter, wherever they may be. Get noticed. I think that's key. So we have to end here, but I want to take another raise of hands. Raise your hand if you have a better understanding about what branding is after listening to Kevin talk. Oh, geez. Wow, Kevin.
Is nobody raising their hand, Bob?
No, no, we have a lot of hands go up.
Excellent.
You would love my audience. They're just quality people, you know.
Fantastic.
But okay, Kevin, stay out of the cold.
I'm staying
Stay out of the
inside.
cold. Okay, and be safe and take care of your kids. All right, everyone.
I appreciate you being
Be
here.
safe. Take care of yourself. Be good to others. All right. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Ooh.